$6.59. Still $6.59. But go ahead.
Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Plymouth Community School Board for October 6, 2015. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we're going to, before the regular meeting, start with a project hearing. You want to take over?
Sure. So whenever a school corporation proposes to finance a project over $1 million, you need to hold a public hearing to inform them about the project and offer the opportunity for questions or comments. So we are proposing renovation of and improvements to the high school and surrounding site, as well as the administration building. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Schoaf to give an overview of that project.
Make a motion to open.
And before we do any of that, we have a motion.
I make a motion to open the hearing.
That's what I was going to say. Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries over.
Let me say all I get.
Good evening. I want to take just a few minutes of your time to provide a brief description of the proposed projects at Plymouth High School. The first component of the project is a replacement of our home grandstand and press box at our varsity field at Plymouth High School. The current grandstand has a capacity of approximately 1,800 spectators, and we have seen some minor modifications during its 38 years of service as far as regarding Americans with Disabilities Acts and improvements that we've tried to make to it. It's no longer really feasible to continue trying to do those upgrades to the existing structure. The new grandstand proposal calls for an increase in seating as well, which takes us to 2,496 seats, with 20 wheelchair spaces, increasing capacity to 2,516. The new grandstand will offer more wider, more appropriate walking aisles, wheelchair ramps at both ends, 4 sets of steps to exit the structure for the new code revisions, and will be fully ADA compliant. The estimated cost for this first item is $750,000. The next item in the project is replacement of our current main ticket booth entrance, concession stand area, and adding additional restroom facilities. Current restrooms provide for approximately 12 people. We increase the capacity to 30 to meet the needs and for the typical attendance we have at events. The current ticket booth was not constructed on foundation and is just simply rotting away basically at this point. So the new design creates some additional concrete space out front of the approach of the facility, and it gives people an opportunity to stand on that concrete approach and get people off the roadway at Plymouth High School and out of the traffic in that parking lot area. And it defines the entrance of the facility and provides a secure location for the cash transactions that we will have at events. The next piece of the project is improved concession stand area and a covered patio to create a weather shelter for people out during inclement weather and rain and things that we're having at events. Estimated cost for this group of items is at $550,000. And final piece of the project is a proposed addition to the PCSC administration building. It is an addition of 3,200 square feet of space consisting of the following. It will have 4 private staff offices, 3 cubicle workstations, a records room, additional public restrooms on site, and a large presentation space. I have an estimated cost for this item at $512,000. I'm using a $160 per square foot budget number to match the existing finishes in the facility. Architectural fees are coming in at about, I'm estimating at $27,000 at this point, and I have a grand total for proposed improvements of $1,839,000 for all the items in this project. And I would be glad to answer any questions that you may have regarding the projects.
Dave, does it address anything pertaining to the field, the condition of the field?
At this point, there is nothing in for the condition of the field. It's kind of taking care of that entrance area and some of that uneven concrete that we have out there, and addressing those concerns at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll turn it over to Pooja from Umball to discuss the financing.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Pooja Shresan. I'm here with Umball, and tonight I'm here to discuss the financial information regarding the proposed lease rental bonds. The PowerPoint that's on the screen here summarizes that financial information. And we're going to start with the outstanding debt of the school corporation. As you can see on the screen, the annual payments for all the outstanding debt of the school corporation is pretty much at the same level up until 2021. It's about $3.9 million, and then it drops off in 2022. And by the end of 2022, the school corporation will be paying off all of the currently outstanding debt. The next slide here basically shows all of the backup numbers for the chart that we just looked at. So these are all the outstanding bonds of the school corporation. Now, moving on to the proposed lease rental bonds, the par amount of the proposed lease rental bonds is $2 million. And as you can see in this estimated sources and uses of funds slide, we're showing the par amount of $2 million, and after taking into account the allowance for issuance expenses and underwriter's discount, we're saying that about $1,935,000 will be available to the school to use for the project. And the number that we just heard was $1.8 million, which is lower than the $1,935,000. And in terms of how the bonds are going to be structured, the next slide here shows how it fits in with the existing debt of the school corporation. The blue bars basically shows the total existing debt service that we just looked at. And then the red bar is what we're adding as the new lease rental bonds. And as you can see in this graph, in 2016 we have a small payment, and then 17, 18, and 19 we have level repayment for the new bonds. And the reason for the small payment in 2016 is, as you may recall, nothing is budgeted for the lease rentals in 2016, so we wanted to minimize that interim lease rental payments, which is why it's a small payment in 16 and then level repayments 2017 through 2019. And as you can tell from the graph, there is going to be incremental tax impact. We're estimating about 8 cents of incremental tax impact. And I'll talk about what that means to the taxpayers here in a little bit, but for the school, in terms of, from the school's perspective, we're estimating it to be 8 cents. And then in the next slide here, we're again showing all the backup numbers for the chart that we just looked at. So we can just go to the next slide. This last slide here shows the estimated annual incremental impact on the taxpayers with different home values, farmland, commercial rental property. One thing to note here is that we're reflecting the incremental tax impact to taxpayers who are out of the circuit breaker tax gap, who are not in the circuit breaker tax gap. And I don't want to read through all the numbers, but just just to give you an idea, for a taxpayer with $100,000 home value, the tax impact is $26.10, the annual incremental tax impact is. And then for farmland, for 100 acres of farmland, it's $163.39, and for 100,000 commercial rental property, it's $79.07. I think that's all I had, so anyone have any questions?
I have a couple of questions. So $26 on an estimated value of $100,000 home value for how many years?
That's the annual impact every year, incremental.
For the life of the bond that is there, or that is on permanently and then
It would be 3 years.
Right, 3 years.
If you go back, it would be the red.
okay. Is there a law that, what was the $2 million kind of cap where there's different procedures that have to go for a bond? At that point, do you have to have a vote within the community? What is the?
Up to $2 million, there's no petition or remonstrance or referendum procedure. Over $2 million, up to 10, it avails itself to petition or remonstrance if requested. Over that would be referendum if requested.
Okay, so it has to be requested. I noticed the dollar amount is right there at the $2 million that they're talking about. What happens if it goes over the $2 million, somebody would have to request that referendum happen?
Well, because of the procedures that we're going through, it cannot go for $2 million. So based on the bids, we're working with estimates at this point. If you go back, right there, nope. $1,935,000 for the project's about $100,000 over what Dave's estimating. So we have a little bit of contingency built in for fluctuation in bids once they're received, or any surprises, if you will. But if the construction summation, if you will, causes the budget to approach or exceed $2 million, the scope would have to be reduced.
Okay, so then you're saying, just to clarify, that you would reduce some of the project and the funding
The
and
scope of the
construction so
project.
that it wouldn't go over that dollar amount. And
Yeah,
so,
but once we go down a path of it's referred to as a non-controlled project, then at $2 million or below, that is our cap.
so the 1.8 that Dave was talking about versus the 1.9
The
something there?
935, yeah.
Okay, was that just the estimate for the football and not for the administration building?
That was all.
That was all of it, that was there. Well, I guess I don't understand, what's the difference between the number that Dave gave and the number that was given here?
Well, the difference is the estimated construction related, plus we're adding some contingency for, I know Dave's good, but we're dealing with estimates here, so we have to have a little bit of change orders, those types of things that could happen during the scope of the project.
Does anyone within the corporation, anyone who's an employee of the corporation, would they have any impact on their salaries, additional salaries, or anything added for management fees or anything else? Or does anything, that involvement of the employees is just based on their normal salary? Like sometimes you hear about.
I'm not understanding the
Okay.
question.
Sometimes you hear projects where they have a construction manager.
We do not hear.
Okay, thank you.
The one outside professional other than legal, et cetera, for the issuance of the bonds, you heard reference to an architect. There is an architect associated with this building, but there's not a CO.
Thank you.
Correct?
Dave, is there any possibility that once you bid this out, that the price could be even less than what you quoted?
I think our numbers are pretty sharp, but that is always a possibility. And if we were to be in a position where we would be over what I've estimated, I would assume we would do alternates to the bid, and then we would eliminate alternates from that bid to make sure that we can comply with our budget. So we design it with alternates.
Gotcha. Thanks.
I just have one more clarification. The Plymouth Multi-School Building Corporation, can you explain what that is? And they're having a meeting on Friday at 11 o'clock tomorrow?
You want that one?
Sure. Because of the way school finances work, the school corporation, rather than borrowing the money directly, they create a separate building corporation. The school corporation will transfer unencumbered real estate to the building corporation, and then it's the building corporation that actually issues the bonds and receives proceeds from the bonds. There is a lease agreement that the board is going to consider tonight, and the building corporation will consider tomorrow, whereby the building corporation then leases the facilities back to the school corporation. It's really a financing mechanism because of the restrictions on school corporations borrowing money under Indiana law. Building corporation is the mechanism they can use to acquire the financing.
So who's the board in that regard for that corporation?
Well, that's, has to be solidified. The current board, the Multi-School Building Corporation was created under a different bond issuance, I believe in the early 90s, and it used the same corporation. The current board members who are still on are John Feeling, Beverly Van Gilder, and Dr. Byron Holland. We are considering appointing 2 new board members to replace vacancies, and they'll be considered by the corporation tomorrow.
Okay, when you say we're considering appointing, so this school board then
Not-
appoints those? Or?
No, the building corporation will appoint new members. Dr. Ron Lichty was a board member, he of course is deceased. Jean Eck was a board member, and she is no longer an Indiana resident, so she's resigned. At the meeting tomorrow, which is a public meeting, you need to come to it, the remaining board members will approve nominations to fill those vacancies, and then those, they'll end up being 5 board members will consider the same lease agreement and bond structure that the school board is considering.
That public meeting is at 11 o'clock during
So
the day?
11 o'clock, 11 a.m. tomorrow, right here.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? This is a public hearing, so are there any additional questions or comments from the public? Carol, really? Do you want me to close the hearing before we move on? If there are no further questions or comments, we'll move to the item 2.2, which is the project resolution.
Yeah, so the resolution to approve this project is before you has been made available to the public. This resolution establishes the estimated cost of the project, the tax impact, and the timing of the impact. It's presented with the recommendation for approval.
For the recommendation, is there a motion regarding the project resolution?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. I will be abstaining from the vote on the project through my association with Humboldt. Any questions on the resolution? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will abstain. The next item is to consider the resolution approving the preliminary plans, the form of the lease, and authorize the publication of the notice of the lease hearing.
Mr. Reed just explained the process, but just to reiterate, the school corporation is funding this project through the lease financing. It's done this with other past construction and renovation projects. These are used by school corporations across the state to borrow for these types of projects. This type of financing does not count against our corporation's constitutional debt allowance, like Mr. Reed was talking about. The building corporation will purchase a portion of the high school, closing for at least the appraised value, and then they will lease the building back to the school corporation. The lease rental from the school corporation will be paid from property taxes before the the lease of the building during the term of the lease. It will be sufficient to pay for the principal and interest due to the bondholders. So this resolution is brought before you again with a recommendation for approval.
Heard the explanation and the recommendation, and the hearing would be on November 3rd.
Correct.
Is there a motion on the resolution?
So moved. Second.
Is there a second? Did I miss it?
Second.
Sorry. Have motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then I will abstain. Item 2.4 is the, consider the resolution reapproving the formation of the building corporation, which I think we just heard an explanation.
We just heard an explanation of that, so this resolution just kind of details that. In order for that building corporation to issue bonds, then we have to reapprove the building corporation. So this resolution contains the required language by the IRS, and again is brought before you with a recommendation for approval.
Heard the explanation and the recommendation. Is there a motion regarding the resolution reapproving the building corp?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Questions? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will abstain. I believe that covers the actions necessary for the project hearing. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Hearing is closed.